So I had a comment on my GarageBand for iOS tutorial that I made last year about the fact that electronics and one person in a room isn't music, or you need to play with other people. Well, yeah, okay. Let me address the first point, playing on your own. The great composers, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, they all sat in rooms on their own, writing music. They would sit at the piano, write something, write it down, maybe it's the clarinet part of symphony number, whatever, in whatever key. So to say that you can't make music or you should make music with other people, of course, music is a human art form in the fact that there is somebody who is providing the music and somebody who is receiving. And yes, of course, there's an interaction between those two parties. So if you're in a club playing to an audience of 150 who are really into what you're doing, you have a great time and actually arguably you play better. Yeah. If you have 3 people in the club, all of whom are fighting right in front of you and shouting at each other, then yeah, it might kill the vibe a bit. And you might just want to get out and just play your thing, just go through the motions and get out. Yes, I get that. I also understand the fact that if you're making a tune by yourself, sometimes it's nice to have somebody else to bounce ideas off. Now, the person in question who I'm having this discussion with said that, well, yes, Stevie Wonder took the drum rhythm for Superstition because he heard Jeff Porcaro playing it in a studio one day. Yeah, okay, that's fine. When we all have musical ideas of our own, we will, of course, have things going round our heads. So you might find somebody who might sound like the Beatles or the Stones or Jimmy trying to do the Jimi Hendrix guitar thing. We get generations of people who are influenced by other people. So I think the fact that Stevie Wonder may have taken that drum riff from Jeff Porcaro, whether it's true or not, is irrelevant, because he played the drum rhythm himself on Superstition and recorded and layered up all those parts and then got the brass section in at the end. So he worked pretty well by himself. There are other people who work extremely well by themselves as well. Now, addressing the second point, electronics. Electronics have been with us for 100 years or so now. In fact, the first electrical recordings were from the mid-1920s, and it represented a massive leap in quality and in just intelligibility. So even something like this piano is an acoustic piano. Now, lots of people would say that acoustic instruments are much better than electronic ones. Really? I can't actually see that. My reasoning is, well, twofold really. An instrument like this is a complete contrivance. There is nothing natural about a piano. There is nothing natural about a violin. There's nothing natural about a clarinet or a flute or an electric guitar or a synthesizer. They all belong to the same family of instruments. They're all complete inventions of the marvellous human mind. There is nothing natural about them whatsoever. I mix in a lot of classical circles, so I'm an examiner for the ABRSM. And generally speaking, the examining panel are extremely open-minded people, even though they may have learnt on acoustic instruments. The fact that you have an electric guitar, it doesn't really matter, because it's what is played on that instrument that makes the difference. Electronic keyboards, a Moog synthesizer, I mean, that's just genius invention. But it's no different from a French horn. They are the same. You play the same things on them. Although the sound, of course, from a synthesizer can be adjusted a bit, so you might get maybe a wider range of sounds than you would from a French horn. Doesn't matter. Bob Moog actually said that electronics is a clear continuation of music. It's not in conflict with anything. And he's absolutely right. Now, GarageBand, after all, this was the comment that I received. It was on a GarageBand tutorial where I put all the parts in myself. GarageBand has this sort of twofold ability. The first is to act as simply a recording device. So if you're a songwriter, something like a tablet on a table is a boon. You don't have to plug any cables in, you don't have to do anything really, just a pair of headphones. You can even use the internal mic on the iPad. Brilliant. However, I think things like the autoplay on the instruments, like getting the piano to play a C major chord in eighth notes, ding, 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 ding. I can understand how a professional musician might feel a little bit aggrieved that it is possible to do that, and that somebody who's a non-musician can actually do that. But that's a problem in itself, because as soon as music becomes a competition, it's not music anymore. It's a competition. It's rivalry, and music. Rivalry and music, they have no place together at all. It is a completely community-minded art form. If you're in the middle of a forest playing your violin beautifully, nobody hears you, that's kind of one-sided. You know, is it music? You know, it's that classic argument. If you shout in the middle of the forest and there's nobody here, did you shout? Did you make a noise? So music is completely community-based. It's perverse to prevent somebody who is not as experienced at music from being able to become more experienced. And GarageBand is, as I say, it's a very convenient way to record, but it's also a very good way of learning some music theory. When you open up the chords on your autoplay piano or guitar or the bass, or when you've got your scale there, every time you use it, you're learning something, and it's this sort of subliminal learning. When you play a C major chord and you hear it, you think, oh yeah, that's... And then maybe you go to a piano and you work out how that chord works. So it's immensely powerful. In fact, the GarageBand really is a gift to everyone, because it just gives you a hugely rounded musical education. You know, you can play a Japanese scale on GarageBand. Most people, before GarageBand came out, wouldn't have been able to tell you what a Japanese scale was without, you know, consulting a textbook. And why should that stuff be hidden? Well, it shouldn't. Nothing should be hidden at all. So somebody who's on their own recording music in a studio, sort of the nerd recording by themselves, it's it's music. Music is music is music. Pantera and Palestrina, they're the same. You know, one's a bit louder than the other and perhaps a bit more aggressive, perhaps. But they are the same thing. They operate using the same rules. In fact, heavy metal and classical music are very, very closely linked. But the heavy metal guitarist might have a row of electronic pedals and samplers and loopers. Doesn't make that guitarist's contribution to music any less valid than Palestrina. You know, it doesn't. Being able to write an orchestral score, yes, of course, that's a skill that is very, very specialised. But whoever is learning how to write a score for classical music or romantic or 20th century or Baroque music, somebody arranging a piano trio, they will have had the experience of listening to recordings. And as I said before, with a tape recorder from the last 50 years, we've only been able to record ourselves for the last half a century. That tape recorder, when you listen to things back, gives you immense feedback. It gives you feedback that you would never have been able to have if you were just playing in a room on your own and trying to remember what it is that you need to improve upon. So electronics and music, they are here to stay as, in my opinion, totally bedfellows. So love it or hate it, it's here to stay, and we might as well embrace it. I, for one, I don't embrace it begrudgingly, I embrace it completely.